My mother demanded I hand over my house to her because my sister is pregnant and needs it more than me. I, 31M, have a sister, 28F, who has always been our mother's favorite, though not our father's. My parents divorced when I was a teenager because my mother had an affair with an old high school boyfriend. She has always been controlling, manipulative, and narcissistic, traits my sister seems to have inherited. Our mother acted like she had total authority over me, snapping her fingers and ordering me around. It was demeaning, and my sister always supported her. It was no surprise that I chose to live with my dad full-time after the divorce, while my sister stayed with our mother. The two of them were very similar and only interacted with my father when it was about money. I took after my dad, who was very business-oriented. He started teaching me his trade when I was 16, and after 12 years of working for him, I became a partner in his company. Life was good until about 8 months ago when tragedy struck. My father, who had a weakened immune system from years of heavy smoking, passed away at 60 after catching COVID-19. I saw my mother and sister for the first time in years during a socially distanced funeral for my father over a video call. My father was cremated per his wishes and buried in a local cemetery, so there was no body or casket. My sister seemed to grieve, but my mother looked indifferent, which didn't surprise me. The last time she saw my father, she yelled at him for more money and threatened to sue him. He just laughed at her. He had paid alimony and child support as required and even contributed $30,000 to my sister's college fund. But after 10 years post-divorce, he was no longer legally obligated to send my mother money. She isn't struggling financially, as she has a long-standing job, fully owns the old family home, and rents out 2 rooms on Airbnb. She's not hurting for money. After the funeral, my dad's will was read. He had anticipated his heavy smoking might eventually catch up with him, and he even joked about it in a pre-recorded video. I inherited nearly all his assets, including most of his money, his business, and his home. My sister received a 2015 Nissan Altima and $10,000 in cash. My mother got $1,000 and a few items she claimed were hers since the divorce. The rest came to me, and my girlfriend and I now live in the house my father left me. My sister pretty much went from finishing 2 years of community college to living off her boyfriend and only working part-time online for several years. During that time, she got pregnant but suffered a traumatic miscarriage. I wasn't aware of this until after the funeral because we were practically no contact and no one else told me. When lockdown hit, her boyfriend's job started downsizing little by little, and eventually, he was only able to stay on part-time. This hampered their finances to the point where he finally told her she needed to look for better employment as well since he was trying to find a second job. And then she got pregnant. She claims her and her BF were careful, but calls it her miracle baby. One evening, I got an unexpected knock at my door. When I answered, I was unpleasantly greeted by both my mother and sister. They walked right in without even asking and made themselves comfortable in my living room. My girlfriend and I shared a look of confusion, and I asked why they had come by. My sister was giggling and looking all over, opening doors and seemingly giving herself a tour of my home. My mother had just plopped herself down on my sofa and snapped her fingers while demanding a cold bottled water. My GF got the water for her, and I asked what they were here for. My sister seemed all giddy and just ignored me to continue snooping around my home. Before long, I heard her yell from down the hall, "Mommy, it's perfect." Yes, she still calls her Mommy. My mother finally spoke up and said, "Well, I think it's time you did your brotherly duty." To which I replied, "What?" My mother then proceeded to say, "Now that your father has passed, this house should have gone to me since I was his only spouse. But you can still fix this. You make plenty of money and could just buy a new house. Your sister needs this one so much more since she's the one with a baby on the way. But if you're so determined to stay, you could just keep to one room and cover all of the bills until you decide to move out." My GF and I read enough Reddit to know exactly where this is going and how it would play out if I let it go on. So I guess you could say we were mentally prepared. I took a deep breath and stated aloud, "That's not happening. You don't order me around, especially not in my own home. Yes, I make plenty of money, but like Dad, I'm going to save it for when I really need it. Not that you care." My mother started snapping her fingers at me like she used to and loudly stated, "Stop. I am your mother, and you will do as I say because I brought you into this world, and I'm the one in charge here. And as far as you're concerned, I am God. That means when I say jump, you say, how high? This house is rightfully mine, and your sister will live here. Consider this your formal eviction, but since I'm gracious, I'll give you 2 weeks to pack your bags and transfer the deed to me." In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this can't be real. But then I just grabbed my cell phone and started dialing. My mother quickly stood up and yelled, "What are you doing?" And I retorted, "I'm doing what I should have done as soon as this started. I'm calling the cops to get you out of my house." She started swiping at me and managed to knock my phone out of my hands. Then she proceeded to try and stomp on it, but I was quick enough to snatch it up before she could. "That's it. If you don't leave, I will force you out myself." My mother proceeded to slap me across the face, and I returned the favor twice as hard backhanded. So much so, I ended up knocking her back down onto the couch. She held her hand over her reddening and smeared makeup face in total shock and then yelled, "How dare you?" I went back to dialing on my phone and said that if she didn't leave, I would have police come and remove her by force. My sister came barreling in between us, holding her arms out and saying that I should just do the right thing for once in my life and be a good big brother. I snapped and said, "Oh really? I'm the bad sibling? Last I checked, I was the one who's had to work for a living since I was a teenager. I had to do all the chores in the house while you just sat on your ass playing video games or talking with your friends all day. And you used to steal my hard-earned money just to go out shopping after you spent all of your allowance. You're a complete mooch and thief. So I don't owe you anything. Now both of you get out before I decide to dial this last number." My sister started to tear up, crying like a baby, and said, "Mommy, make him stop." My mother began hugging her and kissing her cheeks while giving me a death glare. Then she seemed to think she'd gotten smart and said, "You know, if you do call the police, I can just tell them that you hit me. And who knows, I could maybe say to everyone you wanted to do a lot worse to a poor pregnant girl in need. I don't think that'd be very good for your—" I cut her off with a raised hand and said, "Just stop. If you haven't noticed, my girlfriend over there has had her phone out recording almost this whole time. And that means we have recorded evidence of you assaulting me first and openly stating you'd lie to police. I don't think that'd be so good for your reputation at your job or your little Airbnb." If looks could kill, my mother would have blown me up like a tactical nuke, but she quickly deflated and started dragging my crying sister out by the arm. My sister was somehow acting like a complete toddler and broke loose of our mother's grip to sit down on my porch step and have a tantrum. I just gave my mother a look and said, "Do you see now? This is the result of the spoiled way you raised her." She glared at me again, and then I was treated to a show of my mother trying to drag my sister off of my porch steps, but she latched onto the porch handrails and kept saying, "You promised me," over and over again. I let out a cackle and told them both from the door to never come back. My mother flipped me the bird and then went back to trying to drag my sister off the porch. It took a few minutes, but she finally got my sister to get up and leave with her by saying I am a cruel, heartless bastard who will go to hell for this. I laughed some more and said that there's also a special place in hell for liars and narcissists who try to manipulate others to get their way. My mother clenched her fists and was about to say more when I just held up my smartphone again with it recording and said, "The clock is ticking, Mom. Get off my property." My mother then walked my sister to the car, gave me one last snooty look, and drove off. I thought that was the end of it, but letting things go was never something my mother would do. After a few days, I started getting messages from people I know and some relatives online. A lot of them were furious with me, but others just had questions about what was going on. I tried to check my Facebook, but couldn't see anything they were saying because my sister and mother both blocked me on their social media. But my girlfriend could still see everything because they kept their profiles set to open. We screenshotted everything and then printed some of it out. Both of their profiles had posts that called me a greedy, heartless bastard who stole the house that was meant to be my sister's inheritance right out from under her by paying off the lawyer who handled Dad's will, which is a complete and utter lie, and they both know it. I called my lawyer, who was also my father's lawyer and a trusted family friend, and gave him copies of all the screenshots from Facebook and the video my girlfriend had recorded the day my mother demanded my house. He wanted to just write a formal cease and desist letter, but I wanted to take it further than that. And he sent them a letter I told him to write via express mail that had to be signed for. So I know they got it. My mother called me in an absolute fury the same day the letter was delivered. I told her that if she and my sister didn't retract all of the untrue social media posts they made about me and tell the absolute truth, I'd send all of the information I have to the whole family, her boss, and upload the videos we'd recorded of her online. And then I'd sue her on top of it. She called me unreasonable and said that she just did what she did for my sister's sake. Then she went into a full-blown lecture reiterating her belief that my sister still needs my house more than me. I bluntly stated I didn't care what she thought, and if she didn't retract everything and tell the truth, I'd make sure her career would be over. She begrudgingly said, "Fine, you win. Have it your way and keep the house," before hanging up the phone. That very evening, all of the lying posts disappeared from both their profiles. I was unblocked, and my mother gave me and everyone else a half-assed apology claiming she jumped the gun with everything she said because she thought my sister needed my house more than me because she's broke and pregnant. But the house was rightfully mine according to my father's will, and she knew that even before my father passed away, so she had no right to try and claim it. As for my sister, she also apologized, but more or less just parroted everything our mother said while claiming she just went along with her ideas. And then she blamed what she did all on our mother and her pregnancy hormones. The replies poured in for some time on both my mother and sister's profiles. Many were furious with them for trying to take my house. I got a lot of messages of sorries and my bads from those who had previously believed her. But all it really did was show me who was more on her side to begin with, since they were all believing her nonsense so quickly. They were mostly people from her side of the family anyway. No one on my father's side believed her at all, and they openly said so. My sister and her boyfriend ended up moving in with our mother to save money, but she put them in the basement to keep her Airbnb running. My sister started crying on social media that she can't live upstairs. I'm pretty sure the two of them were fighting with each other because all my sister did after that was complain online, and my mother barely posted anything on her social media anymore because of the previous stunt she had tried. TLDR. My mother waited until after my father had passed a straight-up demand I give my house to my pregnant sister because she believed it was her right and she is God. Then said she'd lie about me to ruin my reputation. My girlfriend recorded everything, and I booted my mother out. She countered with lies on Facebook, and I made her take them all down and tell the truth to everyone by threatening to expose her. Now she's the one taking care of my sister and getting shunned.